Hey guys, and welcome to WWE Interviews here on Stinger Wild, where we bring you all of the biggest names and all of the coolest interviews in the world of WWE and professional wrestling. In today's interview, guys, we have two wrestling legends sitting down with one another. It is Hulk Hogan talking with Stone Cold Steve Austin. And Austin is asking Hogan all about that legendary WrestleMania 6 match that he had with the Ultimate Warrior. Remember, it was title for title. Hogan's WWE Championship going up against the Warrior's Intercontinental title. And in this interview, Hogan reveals in-depth details about that match. Now, Vince wanted to put over the Warrior at the time, and Hogan actually had the idea of turning heel after the match. He wanted to go Hollywood Hogan right there and then. Can you imagine if that had have happened? But you're going to hear all about that in the interview, and Hogan actually recalls specific moments from the match. It's really cool. And be sure to stick around for after the interview, guys, because I'll be sharing some of my favourite Ultimate Warrior stories as well. And for now, let's roll the interview.
He was all about the hype and, the high energy stuff. You're a thinking guy and you know the adrenaline and you're working the crowd better than anybody in the history of the business. How was it being in there with the man and keeping him on an even keel to get through that match? And then I want to talk about the finish, because a real genius kick out at 3 1/4. Talk about the man first.
Well, first off, I got to back up just a little bit. I had the red and yellow. I had the big tan. I had the California, whatever it was, whatever the Venice Beach thing was. I'm not from Venice Beach, I'm from Clearwater. But anyway, the California, land of opportunity, the tan, the blonde hair, or whatever I had left of it. And I had my gimmick going. So visually, I had a little bit different gimmick than anybody else, because I was always tan and stuff, because I'm dark anyway without being in the sun. But all of a sudden, the Ultimate Warrior shows up. He's got the red and yellow and the blue and the purple on, but he's got neon colors on. And I've got a big set of arms, and I got one big ab, and he's got a 12-pack. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting in the room, and I'm watching Vince look at him and look at me. Well, actually, really not look at me anymore, but looking at him. And then Vince is calculating the dollar signs. So to go back there, I could see visually he was, to Vince, looked like a better package to draw money than me, because I'd been around for a while.
But also maybe a fresh horse.
Yes.
Because you had been around.
Yes, a fresh horse. But when we were going to do the WrestleMania thing, we did the build-up pretty darn good. And then Vince told me the finish. And my question is always, whether I'm going over or not, why are we doing this? And what's next? And so when Vince told me he wanted me to put the Warrior over, I said, okay, well, why are we doing this? And then where we go from here? He goes, well, I kind of think that the red and yellow run is pretty much over, and I think, we've kind of got everything we can out of the red and yellow thing. And, let's just kind of take a little break from this, but I want you to put Jim over. And I went, damn, Vince, what about after the finish? And I point to God and I give him the belts and everything. I go halfway down that aisle and I do that stop and I do that slow Three Stooges turn. Slowly I turn. And I go back, and when he's up there celebrating, I gaff his ass, and I crucify him, and I call myself Triple H, Hollywood Hulk Hogan. Oh, that'll never work. You can't be a heel. You've been a babyface. I said, Vince, I was a heel when I first came in here. I can be a heel, but now I know more. I can be a great heel. Vince says, no, you can't be a heel. So Vince kind of squashed the Hollywood Hulk Hogan deal. And we had a couple years there that were kind of turbulent, where they put the belt on the Warrior, and they had to take the belt right off him because he wasn't drawn, But when I was in the ring with him, I told him in the back room, which I never did, I kind of laid the match out for him. Not everything, but I laid out this, and I probably had A, B, C, D, E. And what we did in the middle wouldn't matter, but we're going to hit these A, B, C, D, E spots. And so we got going in the match, and I could tell right away, we did the push-off stuff and the strongman stuff and all that stuff. And I started chopping meat a little bit on him, and I could tell he was blown sky high. So I put a rear chin lock on him as I held him down. I said, brother, just breathe and calm down. And he's going, no, man, let's go home now. Let's go home. I'm going, brother, we only got about 5 or 6 minutes, and we're not going home. And I told him, he goes, no, let's go home now. Because the crowd was rumbling. He goes, let's go home. I said, no, brother, you're going to have to press me over your head in the gorilla press, and I'm going to kick out of your finish before we go home. I told him that in the ring. So I got him to calm down, and we got through it. He would hit the ropes in the wrong direction and run the wrong way, and I was used to that.
Yeah.
And the match was okay, but the fact that he blew up so fast was hard, because he really couldn't press me over his head.
You're a big dude.
And you know, it turned out good, but I didn't have a problem putting him over. But when I asked why are we doing this or where are we going next, I didn't get the answer I wanted.
The thing that stuck out to me was you kicked out at about 3 1/8, 3 1/4.
Yeah.
I love that. You dropped the belt to him in a WrestleMania, but you kept yourself over. Then you walked out. You did the turnaround, and instead of gaffing him and turning heel, you handed him the world championship. You hug him, and you put him over. But to me, that solidified you as still being the man.
Well, that was all, and this is, I guess this is the evil Hulk coming out, which I try not to be, but that was all calculated. Because Hebner was supposed to hand him the belt, and I knew if I slid out there and grabbed that belt, and I walked up in the apron on the outside and looked at that belt, and looked up at the big man and went, yeah, okay. Then I walked in the ring, and when I handed the Warrior the belt, he's the one that charged me for the hug and said, I love you. And so I went with it. Perfect. Now when I leave, and I say, this is the guy, when I leave, I was betting on the people following me going down that aisle, and that's what I was going to give Vince the hard time about, because you watch that back, when he goes up to celebrate, and I step out of the ring and walk down the aisle, every person in that building is looking down the aisle and watching me. They're not watching him celebrate in the ring. That's when I wanted to turn around. You know, I did it for the money. I wanted to gaff him. I was dying to turn heel. I knew I'd have been white hot, but Vince had a different opinion.
So as you guys can hear there, Hogan wanted to go heel right there and then, right after that infamous legendary match with the Ultimate Warrior. How would have that been? I don't know. I think Hulkamania still had a few more years in it at that stage. I mean, that was only 1990, so it did kind of start to peter out there at 93, 94, but I think Hulkamania was still pretty strong at the time, but it would have been pretty unreal to see Hogan go back in the ring, as you heard there, and go and beat down the Warrior. It would have completely changed WrestleMania 6, no doubt about that. And I thought those details where Hogan was actually explaining what was happening in the ring between the two, when he actually had to tell the Warrior to just breathe and calm down, because the Warrior was just so blown up at that time. And for those of you who don't know the term that Hogan used in that interview, going home, it's a wrestling term, and when someone says we're going home, that means to end the match. That's what that means. So Warrior wanted to end that match really early, and Hogan was like, "No, man, you got to press me over your head yet." And you know, they're only like, I think Hogan said 5 to 6 minutes into the match, and Warrior was saying like, "Let's go home now. You know, let's end the match." So interesting stuff there. But the Warrior definitely did have a good look. I mean, the guy was ripped. No one looked like him at that time. He was like a former bodybuilder or something like that, so it's no wonder that he did look like that. He had the whole neon colour thing going on there, the bands around his arms, and he did have a 12-pack, and he was really awesome at the time. And that theme song, that song that he had, that was just awesome. That just suited him down to a T. Anytime you heard the Warriors' music hit, the place just came unglued. Actually, that takes me back to a specific memory. I think it was SummerSlam 1988, and it was the Honky Tonk Man. He was in the ring playing his guitar, acting like Elvis and all that sort of thing. And he was like, "I'm the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time. No one can beat me." And they didn't have a challenger for him at that time, and the place went silent. And all of a sudden, the Warriors' music hit. Dun, 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 dun. Bad impression there, but it was a totally awesome moment. And the Warrior came in and beat him like 30 seconds. It was over just like that. Great moment there, and a really awesome theme song for the Ultimate Warrior. But that was such an awesome moment. A really good WrestleMania as well. I mean, at that time, you didn't really see two good guys going at it for the main event. It was usually a good guy versus a bad guy. It was usually Hogan versus a bad guy. But here you had two good guys going at it, so the crowd didn't really know who to root for and who they wanted to win. And these two guys were huge stars at the time. Obviously Hogan was, and the Warrior was at that time as well. This was when his career was really peaking. He was the biggest star that he ever was at this time. And I thought it was the right thing to do to have the Warrior go over. Hogan was winning everything at that time. And even sometimes you could say it got a bit boring because he won every single match every single time. And it was nice to just see something different. It was nice to just see Hogan get beaten even just once. And it was by the Warrior, and the Warrior was awesome, so it didn't matter anyway. So I think definitely the right choice to have the Warrior go over there, and he did pretty well with the belt. Had a really legendary match with Randy Savage at the next year's WrestleMania 7, a retirement match. Really good match. And he was never going to be that guy that was going to carry the company on his back or be like a long-term guy like Hogan. But he was really good and awesome for that time in the WWE. And of course, the Warrior passed away in April of 2014. It was unreal. He had just come to the Hall of Fame ceremony, done his speech, and then he even came out on Raw the next night talking about how every man breathes his last breath. You'll remember that famous speech by him now. And then he just like had a heart attack just a couple days later. It was unreal. And he went well before his time, you got to say, leaving a wife and 2 daughters. Really, really sad how that happened. Not good at all. But what are some of your guys' memories from the match? Obviously, some of you wouldn't have even been born when this match was taking place, but I remember watching it as a young kid with my friends at the time, and we didn't really know who to cheer for. We were sort of cheering for both guys, and it was just an unreal match. Hogan's kickouts were legendary in that matchup as well. Even on the very final 3 count, it looks like Hogan almost kicked out. But that WrestleMania 6 match is the stuff that legends are made of. As always, guys, like, subscribe if you haven't already, tell a friend about the channel, and we will catch you next time here on Stinger Wild for more WWE interviews. Woo! Thanks heaps, guys, for tuning into the video. Be sure to drop a scorpion death drop on that like button and subscribe to the channel for more awesome pro wrestling action from the WWE, the WCW, and much more.